What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening to the economic calendar thus far, as we have some new data coming out for tomorrow, not to mention CPI that came out for today. I'm also going to break down what other patterns and technicals are showing for the markets. But before breaking things down, all this information, before I give you guys any price predictions and such, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon, in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, when it comes to the market, let's talk about what's going on so far. Looking at SPY, we had CPI come out. The CPI numbers were not the best, but the market ended up showing some high signs of volatility for quite some time. We saw the market basically drop when CPI came out. Then it pumped back up, came back down again. Then it started to pump at the very last couple of hours, and we got a really nice pump continuing for the entire day essentially. And SPY is still on a very nice uptrend, looking bullish overall. I did mention this yesterday in my video that yes, the market could pump more. In my pre-market video, I was very concerned. I did say that there was a risk of the market coming down, but that ended up not being correct because the market got bought back up. So that was a mistake I made in the very beginning, but then I corrected my mistake intraday and then talked about why the market was bullish, and that was correct as the day went on. So yes, the lesson to take away is sometimes we all can make mistakes. No one can predict the market perfectly every single time. But I was right yesterday about how I said the market would likely push when CPI came out. I didn't hold the same view throughout the entire day. I was like a little bit adjusted in the morning, but then I maintained the view later on. So I just want to be honest with you all. I make mistakes. It happens, but we just move on. We keep moving forward. And always remember that no one is perfect. We all make mistakes. It is what it is. Anyways, going back, let me just say that the market, in my opinion, is still bullish and there is more potential upside likely coming, but we have to be watching our key resistance levels very closely. So I'll be talking about all of that as time goes on. But let's first talk about CPI and the data. As a reminder, CPI was within expectations, but not as great as what we could have gotten. So let's talk about this. Today in the morning, CPI came out at 3.2%, a slight increase from the previous report, but still technically is aligned with expectations. The forecast, the higher end of it was 3.2%, and we ended up getting that. So it was within expectations, but a little bit on the hotter end of that. For inflation month over month, was 0.4%. That's for CPI for all items. That is aligned with expectations on the hotter end. That's the hottest we could have expected, and that's what we got. For core CPI, it was aligned with expectations at 3.8% on the hotter end once again. However, core CPI month over month was a little bit hotter than expected at 0.4% versus the consensus and forecast of 0.3%. So overall, CPI was for the most part within expectations, not too horrible. There was a slight increase in CPI, but core did come down. So overall, I would say that it wasn't too bad. Could have been a little bit better, but it wasn't too bad. And once that came out, the market dropped, then it pumped again, then it dropped again when we opened, and it started pumping throughout the entire day. So very wild price action. The market was very volatile today. And the question is what's going to happen for tomorrow. I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. For earnings, real quick, I didn't really see anything too significant in terms of like big moves that happened in the after hours. For tomorrow, we have like Dollar Tree, and we just have a couple of others like Arco. But then don't forget that for today, we just had Clover. Clover, real quick, did relatively well. They actually managed to improve their net loss by about $126 million for 2023. And overall, their EPS was decent. Their guidance was not too bad, and their revenue growth was so-so. So the overall share price, in my opinion, had some positive reactions to their guidance. The 2024 guidance was not too bad, with about up to 20 million in adjusted profitability at the high end of the range. So somewhat of an improvement, but without that, some really big kicker. It didn't really make a massive move. Anyways, going back to what's happening in the markets, I want to remind you all that for Friday, SPY has quadruple witching coming. And what this means is we have a ton of options expiring. So we have a little bit over 1.3 million calls expiring, and we have over 4 million puts expiring for an over 3.03 puts to call ratio for Friday. So the market makers know this. This could be part of the reason why they're pumping the markets, and they know that all these puts are expiring. They may try to hold the market up. They may be trying to get the market as high as possible as early as they can. So even if we do come down for Thursday and Friday. Just hypothetically, right? If worse comes to show, they're still going to be in a good place because the market can only drop so much. So that's what they're trying to do, in my opinion. That's why they're trying to push the market up. And we'll see how much longer the market continues to rally for. But this is one of the incentives for these market makers. Now, on top of this, the market is still quite greedy right now as we're seeing buyers stepping in. We're still at extreme greed on different indicators, and the VIX is coming back down to neutral, retesting the 50 daily moving average, which is a sign of weakness for it. There's also another gap below on the VIX I'll show you in just a few minutes. But let's talk about the charts. How are things looking? Honestly, guys, SPY looks bullish, continuing to get bought up over and over and over again. There's no sign of this rejecting yet, and the buyers are in control. So this was a little ironic because of the fact that CPI wasn't the best, but they still used it as a reason to pump the markets and squeeze shorts because they adjusted their algorithms nonetheless. So what do I see on the charts? Honestly, guys, watch resistance now at basically some very tight levels. So the higher SPY goes, the more resistance there's going to be, and it's getting tighter and tighter. So we have resistance at 517.5, very close to that range. Then we have 518. 519 above that. If we end up breaking the all-time high, then 520 and 522 above that. I know it sounds kind of like mediocre to be calling every level like this, but this is kind of like how SPY is moving right now. You guys can see we have like one level, then the next level, and it's just becoming tighter because we're breaking to new all-time highs and we're hitting new territory. So that's why every dollar amount is kind of like a new psychological level. So for support, if we break down, watch 516.5. If we lose this 516.5 area, we could come all the way down to 515 again. And if that fails us, there's 514.2 followed by 513.5. If we lose that, 512 is going to be our next target. How is this looking in my opinion? Honestly, guys, it looks more bullish because the most likely possibility is we're going to try to at least get to this imbalance in the 517s. If not, retest the all-time high, which I think SPY is going to do. I think that this thing could push a little higher to the 518s. And we'll have to see if we break this or not, but there's going to be a big test of this resistance. I do think if it breaks, we could get close to almost 520. And then we'll watch to see if we get some kind of rejection from there or not. But I believe SPY has more gas left in the tank. It's been pumping all day, holding up very, very well, and there's a very good chance it could continue. So I am expecting it, and I do anticipate the most likely possibility is we test the all-time high at 518 and maybe go a little higher if we break that. But then we'll have to watch resistance very carefully because the higher we go, the tighter it's going to get. Now, this does not mean I'm a mega bull or a mega bear or anything like that. For now, the chart is bullish, so we're just going to favor the bulls for the time being. On the QQQ, where we basically tested 444 as resistance. If we break past that, we're going to be pushing all the way up towards this zone right here around 444.5. And if that breaks, we could get close to 446. For support, make sure you watch 442. If we lose this, 440 is next and 438. What do I think the chart's going to do? It looks bullish to me. I think the QQQ might actually retrace a little bit and try to continue pushing thanks to Nvidia and many tickers out there. This has a symmetrical structure with an inverse head and shoulders. As long as we continue pushing, if we keep going past like 445, this imbalance could also fill way up here at 447. But I'm not going to worry too much about that yet. For now, let's just try to get up to 444.5 and break that. And then we could see another push to the upside. The chart is bullish. It looks like it's going to try to push higher, and this could help the markets. So watch for this very, very carefully. The chart still favors the bulls. Tesla is, in my opinion, very difficult to predict because there's so much news that comes out that kind of affects it. And we had some bad news today. We saw some other big banks kind of downgrade their targets on Tesla in terms of deliveries. And they're saying that Tesla has a lot of like slowing demand and things like that. That's what Deutsche Bank ended up saying. That's why Tesla got this little dump, then it pumped back up, and it really underperformed. It was trying to pump with the markets, but this is what it ended up doing. For tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla actually pumps instead when we open. We may see an attempt for 180, then come back down. We might get a rejection and then just trade kind of flat. That's the most likely possibility based off technicals. It tries to push up again towards this 180 area. However, technicals are not entirely sufficient on Tesla all the time. The reason for that is because of all this news. The news is very difficult to predict, so sometimes unexpected things can happen to the stock. So be careful when trading it. It's more easy to predict this like intraday to watch which way it's going and watch your levels. But for now, I do anticipate it's going to try to pump a little bit, at least retest 180, then make its way back to consolidate. So I find that to be very likely for Tesla. For Nvidia, in my opinion, is showing a lot of life. So it's trying to break 930. And I think that if it breaks that, we have this imbalance way up here. So basically, this is acting as a magnet. It's trying to approach 950. I think that Nvidia is going to try to get that break again, and this could actually help the QQQ a lot more throughout the week. So for tomorrow, Nvidia could retest 920 or so, maybe even come back down to like, if it loses 920, then we have this like resistance at 908, which was also previous support that could be tested, and then we could bounce off that, or we could just push from here. But those are going to be some supports to be watching for. So make sure you watch specifically like around I'm going to delete some of these because not all of these are actually needed. I think I went a little bit overboard, but it doesn't matter. If we lose 920, you're going to be watching 908 on Nvidia and then 900 as support. Resistance watch 930 if you break that. I think that there is 944 as our next resistance zone, but I don't think it's going to be that tough. I think the tough resistance is going to be around this 950 to 955 area. This is where I think Nvidia could be heading if we do start to get a breakout. So I'll be watching for that as well. In my opinion, the most likely possibility for Nvidia is it's going to try to get up to 950. It might sell off just a little bit and then start to make its way up higher. So watch for a push for 950, which could drag the QQQ up. And on top of this, I wanted to call out Aapl. Aapl, in my opinion, is showing some life, but it's not that great. There's a little bit of life in it, at least. It's trying to uptrend, so you can see there's a clear uptrend right here, but it's kind of struggling to really hold above this yellow trend line. This was our support. We pushed, bounced off it. We kind of broke past it today, then we bounced through it, and now we're just barely holding up. So it's starting to just trade sideways, starting to consolidate a bit, not looking as great. There is potential for Aapl to break out, in my opinion, if we were to adjust this line. I want to keep this here for the time being, but we could actually draw another one just like this. We could draw our support like this and see if it tries to like break this new support right here. So it might slowly just try to hold this. But here's what I'm seeing on Aapl. I actually have something different to show you. So if you look at Aapl right here on the 4-hour time frame, this is just sandwiched between two EMAs. Basically, it's rejecting close to the 50 EMA. It's trying to hold above its 20 EMA. So it's been going back and forth and back and forth. Going into tomorrow, it might actually attempt to get up to 174 again, reject again, and trade sideways. If we break 174, a bigger push could come. If we lose 172, a bigger drop could come back down to 170.9. My guts tells me it's just range bound, kind of boring. It's been like this for 2 straight days. So there's a very good chance it's just going to be range bound, not really do much for an extended period of time before we get a break in one of these directions. But I do believe it could make an attempt for 174 again, and we'll see which way it breaks. Now, on top of this, I want to call out. Actually, I think I went over pretty much everything for the main 5. I want to transition to Webull and then talk about a few more. So for Rivian, how is Rivian looking? Not the strongest in my opinion, despite what happened. We had some news that came out. It's going to be testing, in my opinion, 12.19. If we lose this, a bigger drop is going to be coming all the way down towards. I could see it coming all the way down to 12 and then 11.8. But I do want to note it's looking kind of weak right now. We have to see if we hold 12.19 or not. But I think it's going to test that, and we'll see if it bounces or not. If we lose this, a bigger drop will come. For so far, we're looking kind of weak after CPI came out and also some negative news. If we lose our support right over here, this is like from the low of the day. I think there's a very good chance we could be making our way down to 7.18 again if we lose 7.25. So it looks a bit more bearish for the time being. For ARM, we're looking kind of bullish, but we have to try to break past. Let me double check this. So I did call 130 yesterday on ARM. That's very close to where we ended up closing. But here's the thing. We want to get above 133. I think it's going to test 133. If that breaks, I think a bigger push is going to be coming all the way up towards 140 again. It could get a big push. We got to break 133 first. It's going to test that for tomorrow, in my opinion. Supermicro looks bullish to me. We were finally getting a bounce with Nvidia. They grabbed liquidity yesterday at this 1025 area. We have this imbalance all the way up towards almost exactly 1200, around like 1210 or so. So I think it might be coming down a bit, then pushing up towards 1200. So watch for that very carefully. On Palantir might retest 25.15. If we reject off this, it's going to continue sinking back down towards 23.5. If we break past this, it's going to break out. As of right now, it's looking bearish. It might pop and then drop as time goes on. It's on a downtrend, but we have to try to get back above 25 to turn bullish. Otherwise, we're going to remain on this downtrend, so it looks more bearish overall. The Russell 2000 was trying to bounce, but still not looking as strong. We're going to be looking for a test of 205.5 to see how it reacts. I think it's going to test this and just trade sideways. Not looking that great. A little bit lackluster, if anything. For what else is there? We also have Microsoft. This is on a breakout. This looks bullish to me, and we have a potential target of 417 coming. I think it's going to be testing 417. Might push for 417. If we break that, 420 is going to be our next target. I think 417 is on the cards for Microsoft. Got a nice bounce on it. For AMD, this is not looking that great, but I am seeing some potential for this to push. We want to see this thing hold above 203.6. If we hold above this, we could be on our way all the way up towards, I'd say 208 is technically a possibility. I could see that, but I need to see a follow through move tomorrow. If it continues to hold above the 20, I could see 208 coming next. The 20 EMA is what I'm referring to. I do believe it could push higher. So it looks more bullish. Let's double check this. Ford, in my opinion, it's showing some potential. It's very sideways, very flat, but as long as it holds above 12, the 200 EMA, I could see an attempt to get back up to 12.29. So there could be a small move to the upside. There's a little potential for that, but I'm not really it's not really a stock I trade right now looking at the current price action. On the 4 hour, the VIX looks bearish. So the VIX looks to me like it has a gap to fill down here around 13.5. It's going to drop more, which suggests that the market may try to push. We also lost our 50 EMA support, so the VIX is showing some weakness. The market is showing more life. The dollar, it tried to push, but now we're starting to come down a little bit. We're going to be watching our support at 102.92. If we lose that, the dollar is going to sink back down towards, at least, in my opinion, the 102.8 area. If we hold this, we could try to bounce, but I think that overall there's a risk of it coming back down. For a few more, Coinbase, it's just kind of flat right now. So it pushed really hard to the point where, volume is kind of declining a little bit. We got this crazy push all the way up to this 275 area a couple of days ago. It's coming down a bit, but now it's just consolidating. I think it's going to continue to consolidate around the 250 area. So watch it just go back and forth, and we'll see how it does. If it loses 248, we could see this thing actually retrace a little bit more towards 240. And if we hold above 250, we're just going to continue to consolidate for some time. So I think that's very likely for it. But if we lose 248, I am seeing somewhat of a risk of that. I could see this retracing closer to 240 before it tries to bounce. So I'm seeing either it trades sideways for a bit or it starts to sink just a bit, depending on if we lose support or not. But I am seeing basically some more potential for it to sell off a bit or trade sideways for some time. For Google to me looks to me like it might just trade kind of sideways as well. We might retest 140.97 then come back down because we've been kind of stuck here. We're trying to hold above 137 as support, and we have 140.97 as resistance. So we're kind of stuck right now. It's just going back and forth and back and forth. Whichever one it breaks will determine the bigger move. But overall, not really doing much. Not really. There's nothing really too crazy going on with it. Not the most fun to trade. I do see some potential for it to test 141, but we have to see if it breaks or not. Otherwise, it's just going to trade sideways for the most part. Now, Amazon is in a very, very weird place because we still have this head and shoulders like structure. Was this a trap for retail, or is this going to play out? We'll just have to wait and see. If we end up losing 172 in the next few days, it still could play out, and we could see Amazon sink back down to 165. If we hold above it, we could try to hold up. The chart right now is showing some life. I think it's going to come down to retest 174.55. When it tests this, the question is, does it bounce and start pushing higher, or do we end up losing this to turn bearish? This is going to depend on news that comes out and also how we react tomorrow. To me, it looks like it might bounce temporarily, but I'm not going to turn to a mega bull yet on Amazon because we have this head and shoulders. So there's a risk that even if we do get some kind of pop, it could be short-lived and we could eventually sink lower because the head and shoulders is still valid. There's no sign of this actually being invalidated just yet. So we'll just wait and see. The most likely possibility is it kind of like retests this 174.5 area, then it bounces a little bit more thanks to the markets, but we'll see if this is a short-lived bounce or not. If it continues to hold and breaks 178, we could turn back to bullish. Or if it just kind of gets a small bounce, it could still turn down. We'll just have to wait and see. But there is a risk of downside because of the head and shoulders, so just be prepared for that. It might bounce a little bit for now, but just be prepared just to be safe. For Meta, in my opinion, is looking very, very interesting. I just want to note that from the way Meta is looking, the 4 hour is showing lots of life right now. It looks like it may try to get a bounce, especially because we're at 500 again. As long as we can hold above 500, I am anticipating we might go all the way up to 508. So I'm seeing some life in Meta. We'll see if we get this bounce. Let's hold above 500, and 508 could be coming next, and eventually 510 plus. But we need to see this thing get a follow through move. We got to hold above 500 and start pushing, and then 508 could be coming next to 510. So Meta is showing life. A lot of stocks are showing some more life. SPY looks like it could push a little bit more, but make sure you watch resistance very carefully, because the higher we go, the tighter it's going to get, the tougher resistance is going to be. I wanted to note that. I wanted to let you guys know about that. So that being said, I just want to thank you for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. And always remember, guys, that I believe my analysis could be very helpful for a lot of people, because I do go over supply and demand, and I talk about potential projections. But always remember that I'm still a human. I'm not always going to be perfect. Sometimes I will make mistakes, and I always try to live up to them. I always try to be honest with everyone. But I just want to say that, yeah, it happens sometimes. Please don't hate me for it. I do the best I can. But you're always free to have your opinions. I'm always okay with that as well. But I just want the best from everyone, and you guys could do as you please. So take care, guys. Do what you have to do. I will continue to do the best I possibly can. And if I do make a mistake, I will admit it. I will never try to hide the fact that I make mistakes. It happens. And nobody could really predict the market 100% perfectly. Never forget that either. But, anyways, I'll just keep my head up. Never give up, guys. Let's make tomorrow an even better day. And let's keep pushing forward. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. And I'll see you guys very soon on the next one going into tomorrow. Thank you, and peace out.